Good morning. Well, thank you for this opportunity to meet with you. I congratulate Jesse and Lorna for this extraordinarily active. We're going to do one of these? Yes. All right. And we have been given a beautiful day. So with any luck, I won't keep you. You all enjoy it. My name is Richard Brodsky. I'm an Assemblyman, but I'm a graduate of PS 139 on Cotellier Road. Get out of here. Church and Ocean. Yes. In Flatbush. And Brooklyn is the world, and I'm glad to be back here. I'm not, at this point, going to take too much time telling you about me. I got plenty I can talk about. I'm a lawyer, an assemblyman, an active participant in a lot of issues. And I think you're going to have to make a decision, not just about what we've been, but where you want this office to go. Where do you want us to take it? What kind of Attorney General do you want for the future? In the end, the stuff I've done, I think will define that. Many of you may be familiar with my having taken on the New York Yankees. When Mayor Bloomberg gave them $4 billion to build a stadium, now they're charging $2,500 a ticket. Maybe some of you are familiar with the work they did on the MTA. When we found Senator D'Amato with his hand in the till to the tune of $500,000 to get that 2 Broadway building built. Maybe some of you are familiar with the work I've done on minority and women business enterprise. Maybe you're familiar with the work I've done on the environment. But in the end, my story is not half as important as the story of the people of the state of New York and what they're going to need in the next go-round. Now, in the next go-round, government, I think it's fair to say it's broken. The political system is broken. We're not serving the people who elect us. And we've got to concentrate on that. The things that an Attorney General should do are not necessarily just being a prosecutor. Nothing wrong with being a prosecutor. You've got to put the bad guys in jail. But being a prosecutor is essentially looking backwards. Who did what wrong when and how we're going to treat them. That's good. But that's not going to tell you what the state's going to look like when we have to struggle with an education system and a mass transit system and property taxes and income taxes and budget problems and healthcare problems that are essentially affecting the lives of people every day. Now, I'm going to come to this with a broad range of support from my colleagues who know my work, be it Karim Kamara or Hakeem Jeffries or a number of other people. Because in the end, what I've stood for is a real sense of community, a real sense we're in this together, a shared trip through life in which, whether you're from Westchester or Long Island or Bed-Stuy or Crown Heights or Flatbush, we've got to get together and fix what's broken. Now, constitutional convention, constitutional change, it's the kind of thing we're going to have to work on together. Fixing the MTA, making sure that those student passes are restored, stuff we got to work on together. I have a long history on social justice and legal issues. Not only was I against the death penalty, I cast the deciding vote that stopped it when it was still an issue. I see we've been joined by my friend and colleague Karim Kamara. Nice to see you again.
Karim, yeah.
I just mentioned your name and you showed up.
Hope you said something nice about
I actually did. The best looking member from this district. Rockefeller drug laws. When prosecutors were opposing it. And we were locking people up for 15 years for this much and one mistake. Not only did I fight the fight, I cast the votes that we needed to repeal and amend and change the Rockefeller drug law. So, what kind of Attorney General do you want? There isn't a bum in the race, ladies and gentlemen. There are 5 people out there. There isn't anybody you look at and go, they can't do the job. They're good people. But in the end, a shared social vision, a sense of justice, a sense of fairness, a sense of a lawyer standing up and changing things in the interest of the people who elect that lawyer. That's what I've done. That's what I've done. This is not my first time here. Karim and I had a chance to go to First Episcopal right down the street a month or so ago. You're going to see me on the streets of this community because that's the kind of politics I have always practiced. It's the kind of hiring practices visible in my office. It's the kind of issues I've spent my time on. So my story, the story of a young man from Brooklyn who moved to Westchester, went to Brandeis University, Harvard Law School, went to work for Bella Abzug, for those of you who remember the hats. Went to work for the Robert Kennedy Memorial for the Kennedy family. Sued the bad guys, won, take on the tough guys. I don't care if it's George Steinbrenner or Mike Bloomberg. Here's an interesting story. Congestion pricing. A way to make Manhattan more expensive for people who lived in the outer boroughs. A way to make sure that people couldn't get and spend time there. I led the fight against that and I beat it. Now Mayor Bloomberg is a big, tough guy, but somebody had to stand up to a big, tough guy and make sure that Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island didn't pay the costs of a congestion problem in downtown Manhattan. I led that fight. I got smacked around pretty good in that fight. I was 6'2" when I started that fight. But for better or worse, we won it. In the end, fighting for the interests of poor people, middle-income people, and taking on tough guys, and doing what's right is what I've always stood for. I'm proud of what I've done. Albany needs change. Albany needs change. That change has to be done by someone who has always been able to both understand, thank you so much, understand what life is like on the street, and yet make institutions respond. It's not going to be enough to stand outside and throw bric-a-brac, or bricks, or whatever you throw, excuse me, to get it done. Brooklyn's going to be very key to this race, and this club is going to be very key to this race. And to the extent that we're going to be partners, walking the streets together, persuading people together, raising money together, spending money together, doing the kind of things we're going to do, I'm going to look to you for both help, but I'm going to look to you for leadership. I'm going to look to you for leaders. Because in the end, this next election is going to be at who's going to lead the state to a better place. I'm extraordinarily grateful for the opportunity to, you all should get a chance to run for statewide office someday. It would be good. It's fun. You get to see communities you don't normally see. Now that, for me, isn't so much New York City and Brooklyn, but it's the rural communities upstate, where we have farmers who are starving to death. And their suffering has to be as much a part of the message of an Attorney General as the problems on the subways and the student fares that I'm working on now. So let us agree to share a vision that brings us together, in which Brooklyn is helping Fulton County, and Fulton County understands the problems of Brooklyn, and the Adirondacks are doing it for the suburbs, and the suburbs are understanding the MTA. And if we can do that, then all the rest of it will come together. We are blessed as a nation and as a community by enormous human resources. We're not using them right. People are suffering right now. And that is what I've dedicated my life to changing. That's what I've had success changing. I plan to do that again, and I plan to see you so we're all on a first-name basis before this thing is over. So thank you for your attention, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Yes,